Welcome to A Whole Lot of Wolves, episode 31 of season 4. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
I'm Paul LePage.
Producing from New York Wolves, we have Mr. Alex Patakis.
Hey.
And on the socials from Baltimore, it's Danny Paletti.
Hello.
All right, guys. Not a game to talk about this week. That's okay. We do have some exciting ones coming up soon. But it was international break, and Danny, we actually had a pretty good representation.
Yeah, actually a lot to talk about. I sort of have a list here, which I'll go right through pretty quickly. So starting with the youngsters, Joe Hodge obviously is on loan, but he was away with the Ireland under 21s. They only had one game and they smashed San Marino 7-0. Sorry for the San Marino fan accounts out there. Fabio Silva, of course, also out on loan, also went out for the Portugal under 21s and beat Faroe Islands 4-0. He scored the first goal in that one. And then they play Croatia tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. And I think that's like UEFA, some kind of qualifiers. And then the one that was really tough to find out about was Boubacar Traore has been away with the Mali under 23s, and they played a friendly in Japan against Japan. And it was impossible to find anything about it until after the fact. But he did score the last goal in a 3-1 victory, so that was good. And that was on last Friday, and I think that they don't have any more, so he's on his way back now. I was kind of looking at when people might fly back, which is kind of the reason I track all these things. And obviously, for those of us paying attention to CONCACAF, we all saw Dexter Lebakisa also out on loan with Jamaica, and in the third place game, scoring an absolute thunder bastard from outside the box. So I'm sure people have seen that on social media. Moving up into the seniors, we've got Tom King, obviously his third choice at Wales as well. So he was an unused sub against Finland.
That was the biggest announcement of the whole international break that even got called up. I was staggered at that news.
He's younger than people think.
I
He's
know.
the youngest of our three goalkeepers.
Yeah.
Look, they need somebody to protect the squad against the Swans, all right?
Yeah, that's right. So he has another game tomorrow against Poland. I wouldn't expect him to play unless there are some serious injuries or food poisoning events. But it is probably one of the only important ones because most of these are friendlies, and this is actually the finals for the qualification for Euros. So if they beat Poland, they get put into Group D of the Euros. So the only consequential one, and the Wolves player is unlikely to be involved. Matt Doherty was away with the senior Ireland squad. They drew 2-2 with Belgium. That was a friendly. They play Switzerland tomorrow at 3:45 p.m. Eastern. Ryan Aït-Nouri played 90 minutes in a 3-2 win over Bolivia. Again, friendly. Algeria play South Africa tomorrow at 5. Mario Lemina with Gabon, they lost 3-0 to Senegal. He played all 90 minutes there, and they just finished a 1-1 draw with Congo today, so he should be headed back. Now we get to the more interesting ones. So Yerson Mosquera, obviously with Colombia, their first game was against Spain, played against Pablo Sarabia. Yerson Mosquera was an unused sub, but Sarabia played I think around 70 minutes. Colombia plays again tomorrow. They play against Romania. Sarabia, like I said, played 72 minutes in that first one. Kind of a disappointing loss, 1-0 loss to Colombia. Spain, I know they're rebuilding, but just haven't really looked at it. And he's been out of the squad since the World Cup, so he's probably trying to cement his place. And then their second game, I'll come on to in a minute, because their second game is against Brazil. Portugal, of course, Nelson Semedo started against Sweden on Thursday and put in a really great performance. If you're on social media, you probably saw stuff about it. He got some plaque for having 25 caps. I think this was his 28th or something. And he got 2 assists. The commentators were singing his praises the whole time. And he played about 80 minutes, and Toti came on around the hour mark, I think. So Portugal play Slovenia tomorrow at 3:45, but Toti and Semedo have already headed back I've never heard of this before, but Portugal are doing this thing where like some players leave, like a whole group of players left after the first game, and then a new set of players came in. So like Neves, for instance, came in for the second game. As far as I can see, Jose Sa is still out with them. And then the big one, obviously, was João Gomez. Everybody was getting excited about that on Saturday. Made his full debut for Brazil. This was his first call up. Started the game and looked really good. I think the first half probably went under the radar a bit, but obviously Wolves fans were watching him like a hawk and thought he was playing well. But then by the end of the game, I think everybody had started taking notice. I know that there's been a clip of Micah Richards recently going around with him saying that he's going to move on quickly. Sorry, Wolves fans, blah, blah, blah. But he's getting a lot of very deserved praise, I think. And then, like I said, they play against Spain tomorrow. That's at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. And that'll be sort of the last of all the internationals. And so by tomorrow evening, all the boys will be hopefully flying back to Wolverhampton. Paul, did you watch the England Brazil game?
I didn't. I take a general disregard to those types of fixtures, and I would have only been really watching it to see how he got on. But the plaudits were phenomenal for him. So his little highlight reel from it, I think he did really well, and it did make people stand up and take notice of that's the caliber of player that we're bringing through. So the likes of Micah Richards' comments and things like that, it's nothing that we're unfamiliar with. So it certainly goes to add a profile and maybe increase in valuations if the vultures in Manchester or wherever are sniffing.
So
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Paul, I got a question here. Do you think that João Gomez and Matheus Cunha would delay a move for a year or so, even though they're getting interest because of the fact they know they're guaranteed to be starting for Wolves, and that means more minutes equals more likely to get that Brazil call up for the World Cup?
I think it's the way that it'd be dressed up because it does show that they've got that path to it and they've got a path to an international place, even though they're not a massive club. So if he can come into a game like that against England that are well ranked in the international standings, even though he's a Wolves player, he can start and do well. And then what looks like amongst their fan base and the feedback on their social media certainly retain a squad place, then I think it works in our favour and probably influences them to stick around if those offers did come in from a Man United, because it's either going to go two ways, that it's either going to be a throw mud against the wall in terms of signings and see who sticks, or if they have a manager change dressed up as some project, and you never know how one of those is going to go. So I think they'd be inclined to ride it out and make hay while the sun shines.
Alex, and that reason I'm kind of feeling good about Gomez still staying is you saw even after that match, he's tweeting "Love you Wolves" on there.
I don't know. I want to believe that, and I do believe that he actually does love the club. I'm just scared of some of the wages that could get thrown in front of him if he ever get to the point of negotiating with some teams, and how that could sway a young man's mind who's got a young family to care for and is basically starting his life as an adult. But yeah, I'm not all that concerned at this point right now, because I do think he could stand to have another year at Wolves. But I agree with Micah Richards' general sentiment that we probably won't see him dominating in midfield too long for us.
I think they could steal a march on it and it'd be a real coup if they just went in there and offered him a new contract and signed him up, even if it was an equivalent length to what he's on now, possibly with a year in advance, and just upped his wages. Then that could certainly keep him with us for a year, definitely more. And then after that, he's got more value incrementally, so that could be a win-win.
I will say too, he's definitely shown when he's made up his mind on where he wants to go. And I got respect for that. And I think if he does want to go, Wolves should definitely, with how loyal he was to Wolves should honor that request. But we'll get more into that a little bit later in the show, possible come-ins and goings. But first, guys, I kind of thought with 10 matches left, a little bit of a break, this might be a good time for another round of over under. What do you think, Alex?
You're pretty good at setting these lines, so
Yeah.
I love hearing these.
All right. So we got some tough matches coming up. So Paul, I want you to start off. The over under for points in the last 10 games. I'm going to set it at 14 and a half. What do you think? Over or under?
That 15 one is really like if you were 15 points uh for the remainder of the games, that is really good form, especially considering our opponent. So unfortunately, I think it's got to be under, and hopefully in some way that shakes out still in our favour for those positions further up the table.
Yeah, Danny, I almost set this at 13 and a half, but I went ahead and gave that extra one. What do you think? Over or under?
Did you look at the table when you made this?
I just looked at the schedule.
That's so funny because I just quick did some math and we are on about 14 and a half points per 10 games for the first part of the season, basically is how it
I'm a
works
good
out. So
bookmaker. What can I say?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the games. I think there's 5 winnable ones there,
Hmm.
whether we do or not. I feel like, I don't know. It seems like we never get a result against Crystal Palace, whether it's home or away. But but there are 5 winnable ones there, and throw in some draws. I don't know. I'm with Paul. I'm slightly pessimistic, and I mean, you said it correctly. So I'd be very happy to say 14. I'm feel trepidatious about 15, so I'll
Hmm.
go the under.
Alex?
Yeah, I'm making a clean sweep of the under across us. Actually, I don't know, Josh, which way you would go, so I shouldn't say that. It's not so much just games against like the top, the theoretical big six. It's
Hmm.
that the ones that we have that I feel like we, for some reason, like we just like can't get a result against Arsenal, which is maddening. Though we do play them at Molineux, like I have no faith in that. To beat City and then go away to City and expect to get a result when they're going to be mid, beginning of May in the throes of a title race.
With Rodri back.
With Rodri back, yeah, they were definitely missing some pieces the first time we played them. But you can break down those matchups all that you want. I like Wolves in a one-off scenario against almost anybody in the league, but we're not the same team. Like
Mhm.
we are extremely depleted. So like for that reason alone, like I can't confidently say that they can get a result against like most teams that they have in their remaining 10 games because I have absolutely no idea who's going to be out there. Like
Yeah.
so yeah, I go under sadly.
Yeah, clean sweep. I think around 13 is probably realistic. All right, Paul. This one I had to kind of do a little bit of thought, but with the injuries and everything, goal scorers for the team over the last 10 games, over under 3.5.
I think we've been quite varied in our goal scorers
Mm-hmm.
this season, so I'm taking the over on this one.
The over. Okay. Danny?
Yeah, I think I can see over on that one. Nelson Semedo technically not getting that goal in I guess it was the Fulham game, the deflection. But I could see him popping up with one. He's been really good. So yeah, I think we go over on that one.
I think Alex is probably going to take under if I have to guess, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think they'll still maybe, Gary O'Neill has proven that if there's one thing that he can get this team to do is to score goals, win or lose. I mean, we haven't had too many times that your salt baths have not yielded us at least a goal or two to enjoy. Cunha will come back, he'll score. I think some of our midfielders are making an effort to, get further forward and even get shots off of whatever, like Lamina. But still, I don't know. Like if you really had to pick four guys you could confidently like place a bet on, right? Like I feel like every Saturday morning in our group chat, I'm always sending like goal scorer odds, and Josh, you're always like looking at the DraftKings lines, like
Hmm.
who's even going to be someone you would be willing to put like $10 on to score going in a game that's not named Matthias Cunha going forward? That's going to be really hard.
Hey,
Um,
Matthias was making you some money for a little bit.
Oh man, yeah, the goal or assist prop on DraftKings was so money. Like goal contribution prop. Love that. They don't let you do that in the same game parlay anymore, which is kind of annoying because that was the move, was take that and like a Wolves to win, and that was nice for a little while, especially with some of these upsets. Anyway, under.
Paul, Hee-Chan Huang starts for the rest of the season. 0.5.
I generally can't see this one. Just they'll wrap him up in cotton wool. If it's down to the final two games, I think they won't bother. He may get on the bench, possibly. The only way I could see him involved is if there is genuine contention for a European spot, and we're in with a general chance of securing one. Apart from that, just wrap him up and get him into the summer, and then look back in the preseason.
Danny, Alex, are either of you two going to take the over on that? Danny's like, no.
No, I was gonna say yes. I was just waiting
Oh.
for Alex.
Let's hear it.
Yeah.
Let's hear your reasoning there.
I mean, my understanding is that the sort of like when Gary O'Neill said 5 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever, that puts it at a sort of mid to late April. So that's like around the Arsenal or Bournemouth game now. And so that leaves, even if he's not ready for those two, which are in the same week, that leaves 4 games after that. I agree with Paul that it's way more likely if we're in contention for Europe. But I think even if we're not, I could see him starting either at home to Luton or if not at home to Crystal Palace. I'll go over.
Yeah, I'll go over too. You know,
Wow.
and every league position I think matters when you're a club like Wolves right now with the finances and everything like that. And I think, and I'm not saying this because the aforementioned betting app may or may not have a futures bet that I placed a long time ago on top half of the league, but I think it may mean something to Gary O'Neill to finish in the top half of the Premier League table. You know, not enough to risk somebody getting re-injured, but also they need bodies. Like
Yep.
also, you know, there is no more Neto. Yeah, you know, it's to some degree, Wang, I'm sure, is itching to get back out there as well, thinking like, if I can get back with Cunha playing, maybe we can salvage what's left of the season by the time he's healthy enough. So I think he starts. I would even say you would set a similar line on another injury for Wang the rest of the season, and I might take the over on that too.
I might take the over on that.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Seeing as there are matches against Burnley, Bournemouth, and Luton Town still on the schedule, Paul, Jose Sa, clean sheets, over under 1.5.
I think with those opponents you got, I think that it's going to be the over on that one. And even if that Burnley game is a horrible dour 0-0 that we've become sometimes familiar with those types of opponents and things. So I could see that one.
Danny?
There have just been so few clean sheets in general
Mhm.
in the league, not just for Wolves. We've only had 4 this season in the league.
Yeah.
In
In 28 games, yeah.
I think I go just barely over. I'd say 2 of them, 2
Yeah.
clean sheets.
Alex?
Yeah, I'll go over as well. I also think that the let's be happy with the 0-0 could be the recipe for a couple of games remaining in this season, particularly while we still aren't too healthy. So yeah, I'll go over.
I just couldn't set it at 2.5, knowing he's only gotten 4 in the first 28 games.
Yeah.
Final table position, Paul. Over under 7.5.
Well, you could clarify this as being the expert. So if I'm saying it's 7, if we finish 7th, is that the over or the under?
That would be the over. That would be the over.
All right. So I'm going the under with 8th.
8th. Yeah, this was a tough line to set. I could have said 8.5 as well. Went with 7.5 though, Danny. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think 8th is where I see us topping out currently.
Yeah. Alex?
Yeah, definitely. I so under
Ooh, the line has now shifted at the book
Yeah.
to 8.5. Too much action on under 7.5. And finally, Paul, the number of times Haji Wright or Josh Sargent are mentioned as possible Wolves targets to us by fans in Nashville. Over under 76.
Coincidentally enough, that number of 76 is the total amount of beers I'll be drinking over the course of that weekend.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go over.
Oh. Danny, you know you're going to get the most questions because of your spreadsheet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be I wonder if it'll get mentioned in other avenues as well and other players. But yeah, I think especially Sargent, I wonder how much that's gonna crop up over and over again. We'll have to see how much he's scoring.
Yeah. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, way over. I would say, and Wes McKinney mentions even just McKidney. That'll just rear its head, even though there's no like actual steam there anymore. We'll get plenty of that, but it'll be very fun. I'm more interested in the 76 beers that Paul plans to take down. I have to be honest, having never met any of you in person and only seen photos of the type of work that you could do at 8 or 9 in the morning local time. I could only imagine when out of town in a party town like Nashville. So
Look, Paul's tall, man. He can, he could put some back. I'm bigger, so I can throw some. And Danny,
oh
well,
yeah,
Danny's just a freak of nature, man.
Right. It's late nights and early mornings, so that there's plenty of time. So
Right.
oh yeah.
Yeah, you should have seen my wife's face when I told her we were having to line up at 5 in the morning. She was like, "What? Wake up, Buttercup."
Whole Lot of Wolves is looking to expand its squad, so if you enjoy working in the creative capacity and share a passion for wolves and graphic design, you could be the perfect addition to our growing crew. If you're interested in learning more, drop us a note via email at hello@wholelotofwolves.com or reach us on X at WLWpod.
All right, it's another big one on Saturday against Villa. It's going to be Saturday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. That's 12:30 p.m. for Paul and I and all the rest of us Central Time people. And it's going to be live on NBC. So here to preview, we have Paul Mattey joining us from the Space City Lions support group in Houston. Paul, you had mixed league form in March, but progress in the Europa Conference League. Will the international break kind of be a hindrance or a help to you guys?
Well, Matty Cash has already got injured playing for Poland, so that's not great. But on the plus side, we're kind of hoping we'll hope we get Ramsey back because that would be good. And the other big thing is that Bailey seems to have fallen out with Leon Bailey seems to have fallen out with the Jamaican Football Federation. They seem to be on an ongoing war, so he didn't even get to go to Jamaica. So no long travels for him. So I don't know. It's a bit of a mix, bit of a as long as no one gets injured playing for England tomorrow, then it'll all be good.
So it's a Midlands derby, big crowd, good atmosphere. We're anticipating, Paul. Do you think it'll have any bearing on how the team sets up at home and the approach they'll take to the game?
Well, it's interesting. The last couple of games, Emery's been like changing up his formations, and it works spectacularly badly against Spurs. But second half against I've forgotten who we played now, but West Ham. He managed to get it sorted out where we actually look more like ourselves. But it's really we're just playing whoever's fit. I mean, we haven't got it. We're playing a lot of young kids and just hoping it'll all work out for the best and trusting Uncle Unai, I guess.
So if it was based on the team and the squad as it stands today, factored in those internationals, if everyone comes back unscathed, what could you be? What do you think your anticipated lineup is?
It's very hard. It's very hard to judge now because we actually do have a few options at the back. assuming Matty Cash is scathed, then I'd probably expect Konza at the right back. There's no way Powell obviously be playing. I'd prefer Dean at left back. He seems to be in better form than Moreno. And if I had to guess, possibly Carlos also at the back. It's very hard to judge because we've got McGinn out for the second game of his suspension, so I can guarantee Louise will play. Well, again, assuming he's fit. Possibly it'll either be Ramsey or Rogers on the left, I guess. On the right, we'll have. I mean, it depends how attacking he wants to be. But Bailey will definitely play. Watkins will definitely play, assuming he's fit. Then it's kind of tough to predict. We've got a few more options up front. I mean, we've got Zaniolo or Diaby. I mean, it's hard to judge, really. Sorry. I mean, Unai has been switching it around recently, just trying to, I guess, get any advantages he can get depleted.
Paul, you guys are sitting in fourth, fighting for a Champions League spot, but there's rumors of maybe FFP issues coming down next year. Is that something you guys are even worried about? Or are you kind of thinking, man, we got to finish high in the table to try and get some money on the books?
Well, yeah, yes. All the mood music I've heard is that they're not going. They've certainly got a high spend, but it's all been planned for. And we've got some very saleable assets. So at the end of so long story short, I'm not too worried about the FFP side of things, but obviously the higher up this table we finish, the easier it gets. We've just signed for next year. We've finally got Adidas shirts, which I'm really excited about. I've wanted Adidas shirts since I've been a kid, and we've just signed a new $40 million deal for front of shirt sponsorship. So there's definitely the revenue streams have gone up quite considerably in the last 12 months under Chris Heck. And that's so I'm assuming you've got to always assume they know what they're doing until you realize they don't, I suppose.
Until you realize. Yeah. Tell that to the Everton fan base.
Well, yeah, I mean, Wolves, at the start of the year, it looked like Wolves had their FFP troubles, but then, you've navigated it perfectly, really.
All right, thanks to Paul Mattey joining us again from Space City Lions. Paul, the big question coming here is going to be, what does the lineup look like? Because Matheus Cunha, could he not play?
I think it all rides on him, just for this game and into the rest of the season, that he could generally be our talisman, and hopefully everything has been geared towards him coming back for this game, obviously with the international break and not even making the squad in the Coventry game, even though that was so important. So I'm just hoping he's back and he's starting and he's got a good enough fitness that really he was playing every minute of every game up until getting hurt. So if they could stumble upon getting that output from him and productivity through to the end of the season, I think that's what our hopes are all riding on.
Danny, judging on how Neto went down again with a hamstring injury, do you think Gary O'Neill's going to play it safer? And if Cunha is in the squad, it'll just be coming off the bench?
I'm sure it'll be in his mind. I always think, like, on the one hand, yeah, our natural reaction is wrap him up in cotton wool, just like Paul said with Wang at the end of the season or whatever. But there's always what the player wants, and we know that Cunha really wants to get out there. So I sort of expect him to start. That's not obviously based on any particular knowledge, except that he was clearly close enough that they were thinking about it for Coventry for him to be involved, and now he's had an extra 2 weeks. But but I do wonder. And certainly, I think the chances of him being guarded are higher now that we've had Neto and Wang both sort of have these reoccurrences.
Alex, over under Matheus Cunha minutes, 30 and a half.
Over. I say
Look at
over.
it.
Yeah.
You're
I
thinking
think he's
start, huh?
playing. This is it.
Okay.
Final international break of the year. You got to go for it. Like, you know what I mean? There's no more we're flirting around with like the top 7, 8 European spot. Like this is the time. So yeah, if he was even in the conversation to be involved in the that match we don't want to speak of that still haunts me, then I think he's a full go. That would be my guess, but who knows?
Paul, experiment back four?
No, I think this is tried and tested. 5 at the back. Hopefully, Cunha's back to inject a little bit of pace and ball carrying just to get that element of the counter attacking thrust that we're so prominent with. If we can get that and be tight at the back, hopefully we can get something from the game.
All right, well, let's look at the standings on the pick'em. Boy, it's a fight up at the top. The guest spot has 21 points, even though half the time that's not even getting picks. I'm in second with 20. Right behind me, Alex and Danny with 19. And boy, Paul, did you get a points deduction? I mean, what's going on? You're all the way down there at 14. Did you have FFP issues?
Just in general, like mortgage, child, those things. I didn't realize it impacted our prediction league, but
None of us got points for the FA Cup game, not surprisingly.
Yeah.
So, Danny, we'll start with you. What are you thinking with this match?
This is our big chance. There's no guest to put in a
Yeah.
Oh man. Weirdly, I'm so worried about our thin squad, but I feel curiously optimistic about this, to be honest. I
Wow.
think we always have something over Villa. I think they're going through something right now as well. I I could see, I'm gonna just say a 1-0 Wolves victory.
Ooh, okay.
Also, it just occurred to me, I should have included in my international break update that Leon Chuomi, who played in the FA Cup game, he was with the England under-18s and scored some winner for some cup that I've never heard of. So maybe he'll do it. Maybe it's 1-0 Chuomi.
I'll give you 5 extra points if that happens.
Please.
Alex?
Yeah. I feel like I've been pretty negative on this show and that I was going to come out with a surprise, but Danny, I like that he's thinking along the same lines. Talking to Paul Mattey, Villa seem like they have a lot of their own issues going on. This one sets up nicely. They have City midweek, by the way, so there are only a few days out from that match when they play us, and they got an eye on the Champions League. Not saying they could just punt on the City game, perhaps, but I don't think they'll view it that way. I really like the way Gary O'Neill's teams have responded. Basically, since the Ipswich match, if you go through and you look at their losses, that you're seriously disappointed. Save for them losing back to back to Fulham and Arsenal. The Arsenal one is like an anomaly. Arsenal played like 15 of the best minutes I had ever seen anyone play against Wolves this year, and then the rest of the game was just like a total, wash. They've always seemed to respond like after a disappointing loss. So with some extra time to stew on that, I'm going 2-1 Wolves, baby, with Cunha back in and getting on the
Wow.
score sheet. Let's go.
I know Paul ain't gonna say a win here.
well, I really like that positivity, and you've heard it elsewhere from the squad and some sound bites that Gary O'Neill's mentioned that there's been talk that we're a European contending team, and they did have one eye on the FA Cup as a possible route into it, that we're going to go all out to win it. So I could see that element of that bounce back and coming back from such a tough loss to do something. But there's just that element that we mentioned ourselves earlier, that there hasn't been many 0-0s, and Jose Sarr needs those clean sheets. It could be a Darrow Stews fest, even though it's a derby. So I'm going for a thrilling 0-0 draw.
I was
Just what
gonna say, if
NBC
he picked
wants.
a win too, I was gonna be like, I love how you guys all take under on 14.5 points. Then you're like, win at Villa.
Well, okay. Part of my rationale when making a prediction is that it can't be a disappointing loss, as disappointing a loss as possible to Bournemouth next week if they don't first beat Villa to get our hopes up. You
That's
know,
Right.
that's that's
like
that's fair.
if we lose 5-0 and we're like, yeah, we're never sniffing Europe, then the Bournemouth heartbreak won't be what it should be and what we all know it will be.
Uh, um, I like Paul's thinking on the draw. I don't see how Ollie Watkins isn't going to score this match, though. So I'm going to say a 1-1 draw. I think Wolves actually strike kind of early, but then can't hold off Villa in the end. So I could move into first, and Paul, you could, catch up
Oh
pretty
God.
good if, it's a draw. But let's hope for a Wolves win. I'd be fine with losing out to you guys.
No Stupid Questions is presented by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. So whether you're celebrating a Wolves victory or winding down after a day at work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of California's wine country with every sip. For a limited time, head to esfuerzowines.com and use the promo code WOLVES for a 15% discount on your wine purchases. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their products responsibly and in moderation.
Time for No Stupid Questions presented by Esfuerzo Wines. Every week, we take your questions either on X at the show's handle at WLWpod or via email if you prefer to email us. Hello at wholelotofwolves.com. We've got a mix of questions from both of those ways to contact us. So let's start with an email from Andrew Breyer, who says, I know that as a mid-table club, and especially one that has declared a desire to be self-sustaining, that player sales have to and are going to happen. We've all discussed the likely exit of Neto, although who knows what might happen with his injury history. Now there are rumors involving Ryan Aït-Nouri, João Gomez, even Captain Max Kilman. Of the current squad, excluding Neto, whose sale would surprise or sadden you the most? Josh?
Surprise would be Mario Lemina. I think that one would really shock me. As far as sadness, it's João Gomez. I would be heartbroken if we only got a year and a half of João Gomez. I need at least another year here.
Yeah.
The João Gomez one would be the most heartbreaking, especially, I mean, there's just like this great love affair that's going on with him and the fans where, I don't know, he's growing up before our eyes. It's, obviously there are obvious differences, but it feels similar to the whole Neves thing where he
I
comes
agree.
in sort of known but raw and grows up in front of the crowd. Obviously Neves was more established when he came over, but it's a similar thing, and it would be devastating to lose him so early. The most surprised, I think, it's funny. I don't know. I guess I'm limiting it to like the likely ones to go, but I think like people have been talking a lot about Max Kilman, and I think I'd be fairly surprised to see him go. He's the captain. I think it's going to be tough to ask a Premier League team to pay a ton of money for him, which is probably kind of what we want. And it's not like Italian teams have tons of money to throw around for him anyway. So, I mean, could it happen? Sure. But I think that given his position at Wolves, he's being priced out of the places that he'd likely go.
I think out of mine, maybe my favorite doesn't count at the moment because he's not an actual player. So I'll say I'll be heartbroken if
Hobbs.
Tommy Doyle doesn't sign.
Okay. Yeah.
But my one that I will be genuinely upset about just because he adds so much personality, the way he plays, what he offers would be Cunha. So that when he goes, that's going to be in hopefully like 2 years' time, and he's helped establish us to that next notch of Premier League teams by scoring a lot of goals. And it would have to be for a lot of money that even eclipses what Diogo Jota was sold for. So that's how equivalent type of player that I'm thinking Cunha will be. So it will be a sad day when he leaves.
One thing that
besides a Cunha exit would mean potentially retooling how the team plays.
Yeah. One thing that would be both a surprise and heartbreaking. Gary O'Neill going for the England job after Southgate gets the axe following Euros.
I mean, England's, come on. Like I said, I bet my life on them losing to France in the semifinal. We all know that's going to happen. Let's just fast forward to that. And he shouldn't lose his job for that, by the way. Whether or not he takes the Man United job, I think would be interesting that he's been.
Oh my God. Please let it happen.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, then Harry Maguire is on the first name on the team sheet every time if he's if Southgate's at United. So that's a good one. I was going to mention maybe if we expanded it to the manager, I think that would just absolutely shatter me. That being said, I don't think we're quite. I think we're a year away from that.
Perhaps the worst one of all. What if someone comes in for Matt Hobbs?
Yeah, that would. Oh God, let's not start. Come on. All these things to worry about. We're ninth. It's not like we won the league and we should be dismantled for parts. Like we're just hanging in there. Jesus. I would say heartbroken at this point. I feel like just because we haven't really mentioned him, though Andrew did in his question, Nori, he's another one that's like his versatility on that side is paramount to, I feel like, the way we want to play. Danny, a long time ago, a few podcasts ago, highlighted that left side. It was like Tony, Nori, and Cunha. They all played on that left side, and they all do something so different from everybody. And I just feel like we would need to, like, you could say, oh, maybe they'd plug Hugo Bueno. It's just not that simple. And he's a player that I feel like he's always yet to realize his potential, but now it's like he's shown that there's probably even greater level to how good he's playing now. So that would be terrible. Surprised, but like could see it. This is a really weird one, but like Pablo Sarabia doesn't fit in at Wolves. You know what I mean? Like he's playing good. Like his wages are insanely high. I can see them just being like, what are you doing?
Let you leave on a free. Yeah.
What are you doing here? Like go somewhere nice. Like go to a nice climate. Enjoy it. Like you have twins on the way, or maybe they've been born by this point. I don't know. I know that they were due. Actually, no, his kids were born, I believe.
Yeah.
You just get out of here, and also Wolves, like maybe they don't want to be paying that type of wage to a player who doesn't really fit what Gary O'Neill wants to do anyway.
He will only have one more year as of the summer. So,
I mean, I don't think he's going to re-sign. So if I don't know, someone back in the Portuguese league or something, or even in Spain throws a little offer your way, it could be like, all right, let's just have an amicable parting of ways. Let's move on. Stu from the Wolves fan cast tweets in, or X's in, and then provides some, I think, some more context. But first, his question is, if you had to change the color of the Wolves badge, is there anything that you wouldn't accept? Now, I believe, Danny, this is inspired by the Nike England kits, right? That had like a collar of all these different colors. Yeah. And now I see on my phone, as I glance at X in the mentions, a U.S. flag with the same thing. So I don't know what the hell's going on with that. This is an audio medium, but can you explain this any better than me, who's just now seeing this?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess for the not terminally online, England's kit has like a very small England flag, or I guess just the cross of the England flag on the collar. And Nike decided to change up the colors very slightly, and some corners of the internet were very upset by it, and other corners didn't understand what the big deal was. I'm probably
Nike called it a playful reimagining of the flag.
Yeah. I think that the bigger problem was their wording, the reimagining it. It's just like, well, it's a design. Like, I don't know, like everything else, like, whatever. I guess partly not to veer too much into political stuff here, but the colors that they chose are vaguely in the same color palette as like a lot of LGBTQ stuff, like the bisexual flag. And it's just like, I don't know. I think that maybe people thought it was too woke. It's so weird. Anyway, but going back to the crux of the question, and going to Stu's reply here, I personally, we're sitting here with all these terrible US jerseys. I would 100% take a US jersey with that color scheme. People could go look at Stu's reply if they want. But it's basically some pinks and some darker reds and some lighter blues. I would 100% get down with that because the US jerseys have overall been terrible for the last like 6 years. So I've got no problem with it.
That
As
white
for
one
the
looks pretty clean though on Sunday, but
the white one, fairly clean, and actually the shorts go well with it. So it's understated. It's better than all the other ones in the last 6 years, but that's literally the lowest possible bar. So to Stu's question though, which colors would we not accept for the Wolves badge? I don't know. I kind of like when they change up the badge, like for
I
the
do too.
Portugal inspired shirt. What do you think, Paul?
I'm fine with anything as long as it's not blue and white stripes. But
Mhm.
to that
I mean,
point,
that would be too far.
the thing is, I think what Wolves are really lucky with is it's such a synonymous logo that you can switch out the color scheme. You'll recognize it as Wolves, even if it was a jersey that's old gold and black from a distance. To the casual fan, you're thinking, oh, it's probably a Wolves jersey. So they got so much variety with our brand, our logo, our color scheme that I think the badge itself is fairly flexible, and what they've done with it previously in terms of matching to that Portugal color scheme, I think's looked great. So
Here's a thought I had when Stu put this in, which was where my mind went originally. I've seen some people suggest like, oh, I'd love to see an all black kit again, kind of like the Adidas ones, but with the badge be all black too, because some
I
teams
was
will
just
do
gonna
that.
say that, yeah, because they don't have it online anymore, but they
Yeah.
had a monochromatic all black hat, and I
Yeah.
have that, and I wear it like every day. And then I bought another one because like I was worried that they wouldn't continue to make it, so I have a backup one for whenever that one gets too worn. I think that would be sick if they
What do you
did that.
think? Here was my idea. All black kit and the badge is the same thing but inverted colors.
Yeah,
So it's black
like
background
this, like the
and
shirt
kind of
I'm
like
wearing right
that,
now.
except think about like embroidered gold. Yeah.
yeah.
Embroidered gold wolf's head with just a gold border. I think that would look very nice on an all black kit.
Well, I can tell you what one thing, guys. Next year's kit is gonna be pink because that goalkeeper kit sold
Yeah.
out
Like
at
instantly.
Black Friday. I mean, it sold out because I had my order lost and I had got that for my wife, and then they're like, "We're all out." And they
Yeah.
never got that. That pink's coming. It's gonna be if it's not the away kit, it'll be the third kit this next year because that's
We
a
get it.
moneymaker.
We need to get Danny a meeting with Castore,
Yeah.
or get the lifeline that Aston Villa got
Yeah.
from Adidas, which I actually don't know how long Wolves' contract with them is, but they kind of broke into the market and have had nothing but bad press.
I think that there's rumors it's coming to an end. So
yeah,
I'll be disappointed as far as the merch itself concerned. Like the leisure wear, I think's been phenomenal, and
I agree with that. Yeah,
the kits have been like good as far as I'm concerned, and the quality of them, I'd say they're certainly better than what Adidas was churning out before.
Well, speaking for a bigger guy, I would be fine with Castor going away because it feels really bad when I order a 3X thing and it still feels a little tight.
Yeah.
That's it makes you cry and die a little inside. So bring me back my 2X is good enough for me.
It's just the way they're cutting them out of the size. Nike the same way. Depending on what I eat for dinner the night before, I may or may not fit into my Greek national team shirt, which I plan to wear under my work gear tomorrow when they play Georgia in the playoffs.
Castor not friendly for man boobs. I will say that.
Yeah. And with that, we move on to Andy Thomas's question, which is, what do elite coaches actually do differently or better than their less renowned peers? Could Pep get this Wolf squad to the Champions League places, or could Gary O'Neill win the league with City's side? I love this question.
It's great.
It's brilliant.
I want to hear Paul's answer to this one.
My totally unscientific estimation is that an elite coach like a Pep or a Klopp would add 2 to 3 league places on any team.
Wow.
In the Premier League.
Yeah.
So I would have that Wall squad finishing 6th. I think if you had a Pep in charge or a Klopp. Now, would that this is a big question, isn't it? Would Gary O'Neill go into that Man City team and effectively not have to change much and still get a tune out of him? I'm inclined to think that someone like him could, because for me, I think that the biggest thing, it comes down to just that tactical brain and that tactical masterclass, that not so much that you got to worry about your team, but you can put a side together to absolutely dominate that particular fixture that you're going to come up against, be it a low team or a Man City versus Liverpool. You kind of, those elite managers, that's where they really earn their crust. And I'd even extend this to say that it comes down to, and I will caveat with the opposite, but it comes down to having that professional understanding that Pep was elite, and if you've got that elite mentality on the pitch, I think there's an element of that translates to management, and even to O'Neill's credit, I'd say that he recognizes and he said that I wasn't as good as some of those players on the Wolves squad, but I tried my hardest. I did as good as possible. And I think it's elements like that exists. But then you do have all of those elites and those players that have come through and gone into management like a Pep and done well. But there's always those types of manager like a Jose Mourinho, that in his pomp at his Chelsea years, that was something unprecedented, and that was from a guy who hardly played and came through as Bobby Robson's interpreter. So that to me says it comes down to that tactical, that real knowledge of the game, that understanding of what's going to happen out on the pitch. They can foresee it and do something about it to ultimately win.
So I feel like this is kind of addressed in Ted Lasso, because Ted Lasso is very much, well, what's more important for a soccer manager? Is it being able to get the players to rally, playing more as a team and everything, or is it the tactics? The way Ted Lasso framed it was, well, that team building, personality driven is a little more important. And I kind of believe that. I feel like guys like Pep, the reason they're so good, yes, they're awesome tactically, but they also know how to manage the personalities. How would Pep do with a younger team like Wolves, where it's not as big personalities and so needs to be coached up a little bit more? Same with Gary O'Neill at Man City. Yeah, he's able to do well with the younger players, but could he handle kind of the older egos? So I say, yeah. God, Stu's gonna be so pissed at me with this. I say it is more. I think for a manager wise, more than the tactics is how you can handle the personalities in the locker room. So it does make a difference, but I don't think as huge a difference as like an NFL coaching staff.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I'm not even that into NFL.
Yes, good. I won't be going down.
I mean,
by myself.
It sort of like goes to a thing that I've thought of before. Like, you guys know that I come from the ultimate frisbee world, and that's a lot of like self-coaching, self-officiating. Like, we have these club teams, but like the people coaching it are normally very close to the game, are either players on the team or they're, people who have recently left. And I always wonder, like, how much would a soccer team, how would a soccer team do if you took away the coach and just said, we're putting in just a person to like do the sort of admin part of coaching, make the subs, whatever, but the like tactics are really going to be chosen as a group by the team, and they're just going to like go out there and play. And how well would like a Man City do given the elite talent that is there? Like, how well would they do without someone imposing their ideas? We just assume that, oh, Pep is this genius who has these free ideas that just come out of nowhere that he pulls from his head and gives to the team or whatever. But like these tactical ideas are not like unknown in the soccer world, and I wonder how well they would do it. I'm not for a second saying that Man City would be just fine with basically zero coach, someone to just manage the personalities and not do any tactical.
I
But
actually
like,
think that's a super hard job there with the
yeah, but I do
personalities they
think
have.
like it's really interesting to think like all these players, especially in soccer, where the manager is mostly like 70 yards away from you, like they have to know the game so well. And I do think that compared to a sport like American football, where obviously every play, you can be involved, the players themselves actually contribute a ton to what actually happens on the field. Obviously, the coach sets up all these rules beforehand. I want you to play like this and this and this, but they have to solve those problems. And if those things aren't presenting themselves to them, then you got to find something else on your own.
Danny, I do want to poll on socials this week. Who would be the better manager for Wolves between the four of us? Or not even just for Wolves. The better manager, I feel like you and Paul would be more down and dirty with the tactics and everything, and me and Alex would be more the Ted Lasso type.
Or the vibes guys. Yeah. Yeah. That was a great question. Loved all the answers. I was thinking about it as you were all speaking. I think Pep, managing Wolves would be such a fun thing, and I do think he still gets a lot out of them. I worry that Gary O'Neill, even with all that talent at a club like City, like not being the name and that dynamic, like person who walks into a room and it's just like it's almost like an aura around you. I would just always be curious how that would go, and we don't see it that much because at a club like City, like whoever succeeds Pep is going to be probably a really big name already. So it's one thing to manage a couple of kids and players who've been like kind of looked over or rejected by the Premier League, like Lamina in the past, and it's another when it's like literally the biggest names of the sport. So also I saw it's a puff piece, and I think it's actually entirely made by the club itself. But you better believe, at least in the US, I think next week it launches on Netflix. There's another documentary about Man City and the treble. And Pep is one of those people, like, I will watch that series just because I'm so fascinated by him. And it's going to be mostly him just like screaming and yelling. And I just like can't wait to watch that because I want to know what makes these absolute geniuses genius. So more to come on that. On your question, Andy. Okay, final one. Ryan says, any thoughts on what time people are getting in line for the Premier League Fan Fest on Saturday morning? Gates open at 5 a.m. I don't know if anyone has been to previous Fan Fests to provide any input. Paul, I know you have. I have not, actually.
Yeah, I'll pick this up from my experience when it was in Austin. And granted, that was a Sunday, and we were the early 8 a.m. kickoff at that time. So it is an early start when they say about the doors opening, but then you do look in the fine print that they say you need to be in there by 6 to guarantee your place. Now, whether that's in line for 6, I'd probably say you'd be okay for then if you're showing up about just before 6. And you've got obviously you've registered, you've got the ticket and the app and everything. I think you'd probably be okay. What tends to happen is you do get that crowd that do go there early, that line starts, and then often that's because there is an early kickoff that they're planning for, which I think is the case on the FanFest weekend on the Saturday as well. So you'd probably get there, see that line and think, oh man, this is huge. But it tends to go when the doors do open, it tends to go down pretty quick. So if you have given it a little time, then you should typically be okay based on their instructions.
And just as a reminder, Paul, that Nashville is in Central Time.
That's
so
right.
all these times we are giving is Central Time.
Yeah. So if you're getting a flight, if you're traveling in from a different time zone, change your watch and make sure that you're getting there for the correct time. Or you could do like someone may be intending to do whilst he's drinking 76 pints. You might not even need to go to sleep. So you could go from your Friday night could extend straight in there, and you could just be queuing, drinking the local Nashville beer. So if that's maybe possibly a thing, it might not be mine, but we will be getting together at Acme Feed and Seed, which is literally right by where the FanFest venue is going to be, and that will be on the Friday night from 6:30 p.m. So really casual. Have a drink, have a bite of food there. Get to mix and mingle with some other fans from around the country. Then obviously we've got the game going on Saturday. We'll be heading back to Acme immediately after the end of the game. We'll be recording the following week's podcast. So be sure to bring those no stupid questions to ask in person.
So the 76 beers that you plan to drink and maybe play straight through on Friday really blow up my plan, because I thought you were going to be the reliable one, and I wasn't going to set an alarm, and I was just going to have you shake me awake like my parents used to do for school at the Whole Lot of Wolves slumber party that we planned to have on Friday leading into Saturday.
Now, I was looking at Danny as filling that role in terms of coaching staff and dynamics of a group. I think
I'm an early riser. So.
Yeah, Danny
Cool.
Danny is our organizational leader.
But then he'll be shotgunning beers there too.
Yeah, we'll wake up to the sound of him cracking the candid shotgun it with Todd DeWitt. Awesome. That's it for No Stupid Questions. And they are brought to you each week by Esfuerzo Wines, showcasing 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. Head to esfuerzowines.com, use the promo code WOLVES, and you'll get a 15% discount off of your wine purchases.
Thanks to Alex producing, Danny manning the socials, and to you, the listener, for giving us your support each and every week. If you've yet to do so, please go ahead and leave us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. We will be back early next week because it is a huge, big week. Not only are we gearing up for that fan fest when it's the game against West Ham, that's the podcast on tour. It's Tex Fest Live 2, everything that goes with that weekend. But that's not forgetting there's also a midweek fixture to squeeze in as well when we travel to Turf Moor to take on Burnley. Away, that is on Tuesday. So in the meantime, everyone, you know what to do. There's 2 things this week. It is shit on the Villa and up the mighty Wolves.